Good afternoon and welcome back. We have an engaging combination of an economist and a politician here with us today. And there's an old joke I'm reminded of. They say an economist after a recession says, "I knew it." And a politician after a boom says, "I did it." We're here to discuss the role of conscious keeping in capitalism in two societies which have moved with gusto towards capitalism in recent years, India and China, Bengal not excluded. Let me start with you, Weiying. The West seems to be tiring of capitalism, as we saw with these pictures, just at a time when India and China are increasingly self-identifying as capitalists and in terms of raw entrepreneurial energies. Is this rewriting the North-South equation forever, or is this an aberration?
First, I'd like to say I'm very honored to be here to talk with India business politicians and academics. Thank you. I'm the only person from China in this room. So that means I think in future we need to have more communications exchange between China and India. Yeah. I hope in China, when we have such meetings, we will have more people from India too. Come to your question, I think in my mind, there are only two logics working in human history and human society. First is, I call it the logic of robbery. Second is the logic of the market. By logic of robbery, I mean that you want to be happy, but make other people unhappy. The logic of a market or logic of capitalism means if you want to be happy, you must make other people happy first. That is only by creating value to other people, particularly to consumers, you can be rich. You can be profitable. So in this sense, I think the capitalism or market economy, that's the only system by which a nation can be rich. No nation can be rich by just redistributing wealth from this kind of people to another kind of people. We know competition is everywhere, but we need competition which is productive rather than anti-productive. Like the socialism, this is anti-productive competition. I think market economy is a productive competition. And in this sense, why we say the West not dominate the world for several hundred years? Because they pioneered capitalism. They pioneered the market economy. Why are we East and not so rich as the West? This is because we didn't have such system, the market economy. But in past few decades, China began to reform, India began to reform. We introduced this market system. Then we become developed, more developed, and become rich. In future, I think it's, if West country like American, European, they go to more anti-capitalism. India and China, we go to more capitalism. I think we will overtake them in some years. I'm very confident in this, because only when we let people, particularly those entrepreneurial people, to work hard, to create wealth, and we can really be rich. I think if we have a more socialist system, and then the people would like to take a free lunch. Although economists always say no free lunch, but everyone likes to be free lunch. So socialist system, that's such a system that many people think we can have free lunch, but there's no free lunch. They just eat each other. So that is, I think, why this is not good way. And I believe that is in future, I think China, India, will be more powerful. This equation between West and East will be changed. But this is certainly much depends on our own policy. And although we have changed a lot, but I think in China, we still have a lot of things to do. And after the financial crisis, even China reform has been stagnated. I worry about this. So I always give warning to government. If we do not continue reform, if we just or even reverse back to a traditional government intervention system, we will have trouble. We will never be developed.
Dinesh
So
looks
did you have
as...
your lunch fine? Was it free?
No,
not free lunch here also. Yeah, Tarun must have charged for that.
Dinesh looks as worried as he would at an Indian cabinet meeting. Other people are advocating reforms. Dinesh, you are an unusual politician. You were a commercial pilot. You studied, did an MBA from the US, from Austin. You're seen as an economic reformer. But you represent a state where even if this Communist Party has been defeated there politically, the pervasive philosophy there seems to be anti-business and stuck in the sort of 1970s socialism. Does this worry you? Does this frustrate you? Or do you see this as natural?
Ashok, before I answer you, let me thank Tarun and Shoma, and I'll tell you why I'm thanking them. Okay. I was coming here, so a friend of mine asked me that, hey, what are you doing on Sunday? I said, I'm going to Goa. Well, acha, chutti, politician ko maze hai. I said, chutti butti nahi, I'm going to participate in a seminar. He said, what seminar? I said, it's THiNK seminar. He said, THiNK seminar? But you are a politician. What do you have to do with THiNK? And the second, he said, acha, what is the topic? I said, conscience keeping in a capitalist world. So he was all the more surprised. He said, conscience keeping? But then you are a politician. Where is your conscience? So I want to thank Tarun for letting people know that politicians can also think, and we also have conscience somewhere down the line. I must tell you, when you compare communist with capitalist, to answer your question, how do you define communist? It's man exploiting man is communist in some way.
Okay.
And how do you define capitalist? Is the other way around. So now, and when you just heard Weiying talking about marketing, talking about no free lunch, where is communist? And you have America, where capture Wall Street. And China has become biggest bankers for America. So you have the capitalist has become a debtor, and communist supposed to be has become biggest bankers for the debtors. So all I'm trying to tell you is this concept of capitalist and communist is, I think, lost in today's world. What matters is who is in power and how that person or that government is in power. So power has become all pervasive, no ideology is left, that is what it is. Coming to your question about West Bengal, I don't want to go back to CPM and the communists, because CPM, somebody said, it is the commercial party of India, M is for money. So I don't think so they dealt anything to do with any ideology. For last 35 years, whatever creativity was there is lost. So it's a tough call. It's not going to be easy. And you must have heard Mamata Banerjee always talking that the coffers are empty. Not only empty, it is absolutely at the low ebb. Biggest thing in Bengal was democracy. You will be surprised, there was 1-point program, and that's what my voters used to ask me when I was, going for campaigning. And you know what the question was? They used to come and whisper in my ears, sir, vote ta dite parbo? Means, can we vote?
Will we be able to vote?
So, at this point in time, Mamata Banerjee is very friendly with investment, very friendly with farmer. You just heard Pawan saying that don't only go for GDP. Look at what is the GDP of the poor. So if the base of the pyramid survives, then the top also survives. So we are friendly with farmers, we are equally friendly with industry, because both of them must survive, but not one at the cost of the other.
Dinesh, that sounds very nice, but in UPA 2, you are seen, Trinamool Congress is seen as performing the role of the left in UPA 1. You are seen as blocking economic reforms. Even in the railway ministry which you head, your cabinet colleagues say you don't want to increase fares.
Did the left have any role there?
No, not in the railway ministry, but...
No, in the entire thing. No, coming back to your railways, I tell you very honestly, today the entire world is flattish. China, you just heard, they are not very sure whether they can sustain this growth. The entire world is looking at India, because India is the country where no matter, and I must tell you, no matter which government, who is the prime minister, the inertia, the energy of the people sitting out here is so much that nobody can stop India's growth. So the world is looking at India to make sure that factories, wherever they are in Europe, in wherever, in America, the factories run. And Indian growth is just not possible without the reforms of the Indian railways. And I can tell you with a lot of confidence that it is the Indian railways who is going to be the engine of growth for the entire country, and that is what I am confident about.
But will that reform happen only with the government? Can the private sector also do it?
We have in the 12th five-year plan, $1 trillion are going to be invested in infrastructure. And out of $1 trillion, 50% is going to come from the private sector. So there is nothing we can do without the participation of the people sitting out here. And I can also tell you, the assets of the railway is amazing. But so far, nobody has looked at station as something which can generate revenue. So in that process of reform, what I'm going to do is segregate the entire stations. And like you have the Airport Authority of India, why can't we have the Stations Authority of India? Why can't we have 50,000 people working underground a railway station or above the airways of the railway station? This is going to be the order of the day, and I have no doubt about it, given the kind of private entrepreneurs we have in this hall and in this country. We are going to have a PPP model, and the railway stations must look like the airports. It's a different story that today the airports are looking like the railway stations.
Yes.
May I just say a few words about this capitalism and communism or socialism? I think still is definition is very, very important. My definition is, and capitalism or market economy, people serve each other, people help each other. And socialism, people hurt each other. And particularly if you look at our market economy, we find this in marketing ultimately, that very smart people serve those ordinary people, common man. Now, that is very different from a system we call socialism, and which that is ordinary people serve a small group of privileged people. That is very, very different.
Having said that, Weiying, we've seen a spurt of protest in recent years in China on the environment, on land acquisition using mobile phone cameras and Facebook, for instance, on property acquisition. How widespread is this, and how much of a challenge is this to business and capitalism in China?
It's right. It's more and more mass protests in China. And I think that is, given China is so big country, it should be normal. In one sense, that's good news, because that means no Chinese people have more freedom to express their happiness. That is important. That would be impossible in the past. If you had different ideas from government, if you protested, you would be suppressed. Today, I think people have more freedom to do that. Secondly, I'd like to emphasize that there are different types of protests. One kind is actually people like to protect their rights. You know, Chinese people and socialist planning economy, there are no sense of their own rights. they fight is government feed the people. Today, now people realize, oh, we feed government. That is a very different, different mindset, I think. So when they think, yeah, we have our own rights. I have my own house, my own land. When some people want to take it, why? They must give enough compensation. So if they are not happy with this compensation, they will protest. Also, like environment, we live here. When government try to build some factories that produce some pollution, which damage our health, why we keep silent? And the second type, I think, is more like it's not personal rights be damaged, but when they fight that is not justice. So people are happy with particular local government's measures dealing with this kind of dispute. And the third, I think, the Chinese people now began to lose some trust on the government. It's not like the past. In past, I think if they have problem, they always think the government, what the government decide is right. Today is not necessarily. Particularly like a few months ago, there was a big accident of a high-speed way. So why was people was so unhappy? Because they really are happy with the government dealing with this. Because in China, railway is still is owned by government, controlled by government. And thirdly, recently there are more unhappiness related like even charity. In China, no real private charity organization. All charities, even like Red Cross organization, is a semi-government organization. So the government also complains this. People also complain this. Third, I think fundamentally, if we look at China, China is not a country with the rule of law. The court has no independence. So when people have a problem, they do not go, normally they do not go to court for judgment, but they always go to government, So this is the government that can make some individual cases to be mass problem. Once a problem, it's very difficult to government to make a decision. So I hope in future, I think if government really want to solve this kind of problem, and very important to have an independent judicial system. So that court, not government, to make decisions on some particular cases like land acquisition or other environmental issues. Otherwise, I think this would be more serious. But the problem is that even today government has not realized independence of court is so important for government. I hope they will learn this lesson from many protests in past few years. But I'm not sure they will do well.
Ashok, I think it's not the question of capitalist versus communist. Okay. I think today the problem is a little more complex. And as I see, the complex problem is concentration of wealth at a very small percentage. If you look at America, in about years 76, one person had about 8.9% of wealth. 2007, that percentage of wealth which 1% of population has gone up to 23.5%. In other words, between 1976 to 2007, $1 growth, out of which 56 cents has gone only to 1% of the population. To give you an example.
Pie has also grown.
Yeah, but pie has gone, but the percentage remains 1. Just to give you an example, Mr. John Paulson, he was manager of the hedge fund. In 2007, his income alone was $3.7 billion US, which was 74,000% of an average household income in America. That is where the problem, and I see that problem happening in India also. But unfortunately in India, like we have in America, we have a Bill Gates, we have a Warren Buffett. I'm sure somewhere here we have Airtel. Rajan is sitting here. We'll learn a lesson from them. And perhaps he also would get into a little bit of philanthropic work. And that is where I think the pressure is building. When you see this pressure building and thanks to the media, and thanks to people like Tehelka, who are also exposing a lot of things. So today people have become very wiser and the knowledge has grown. So no more you can hoodwink anybody, whether you are in parliament or you are an NGO, whoever you are. So that is on a positive note.
Weiying, he has a point that in the 20 years of economic reforms in India, the middle class has grown, but the rich have grown richer. Is this a concern in China as well? Because obviously there is a concentration of wealth in a few families or a few hundred families perhaps.
I think in China, generally speaking, business people, although they become rich, they are quite weak in front of government. Okay. So that is why you see that so many Chinese business people try to immigrate to other countries. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America. So that is, I think, quite different from India, I think. Today, certainly, there are some income inequality issues. Many people worry about that. And, but probably the whole to solve that. One way is use government force, as traditionally we used. Secondly, we still use market force. What I did a few years ago was I find that is, for those areas, like people have more freedom to do business, and the government less interventionism, income inequality and less serious, compared to those regions where government still dominant, like northeast areas. Reason was that when government have too much power, control too much resources, only small group of people could benefit from these resources, from this government power. Ordinary people couldn't do that. So that is the result is that is a big income gap between those rich and low.
Dinesh, does the government have too much power in India? Not this government, but the state.
I don't know whether the government has any power at all today. No, honestly, the parliament is very robust. And we have checks and balances. And I think we have one of the best democracy in the world. And that is the reason you see this churning process. Whether it is, no, the churning process, you don't agree that there is a churning process. See, the very fact that we had what we had in Ramlila Maidan, I think it was a great churning process. And we definitely welcome. And I must tell you, for your information, that right to information came because one of the members of parliament had gone to the court during this Vora committee. And that is where right to information came. And I must tell you, even this right to information was getting diluted. Again, there was one member of parliament who went with Arvind Kejriwal, with Anna Hazare, and protested at Jantar Mantar. And you know who was that member of parliament? Yours truly. So it's the parliament which is really very supreme. I must end here with a joke. Okay. If you permit, there's too much of seriousness. So you know this Tom came from a school, from his civic class. And he said, Dad, what is this? What is this capitalism? What is this government? What is labor? I don't understand all of these. So Dad says, okay, Tom, I'll make you understand. You see, I'm the bread earner, so I'm the capitalist. Your mother runs the house, so she is the government. You see the maid who looks after you? Your maid is the labor, and you are the present, and your younger brother is the future. So this is what is all about civic. So that particular night, the younger brother wetted the bed. Okay. So middle of the night, Tom went looking for mom and dad, went to the mom's room, found mom was sleeping, and didn't find dad. And you know where dad was? Dad was there, obviously, you understand. Dad had some urgent work with the maid. So Dad was there. So next morning, Tom told Dad that, Dad, I've figured it out. All I've understood. I've understood what is it all about. He said, what is this all about? He said, while capitalist is exploiting labor and the government is sleeping and the present is watching helplessly while the future stinks.
I'll squeeze in one final question, Weiying, just one final question. What is the Chinese capitalist template which can be exported to other countries? The American template was privatization, cut the deficit, and so on. What is the Chinese template?
I think capitalism is capitalism everywhere, should be same. Although, different countries maybe have some characters. So, although some people argue there's a Chinese model, which my understanding is they mean that is more government control. But that is wrong. I think that China's model is very similar to all other successful models. British, American, Japanese, Korea, even China's Taiwan, and Hong Kong. That's entrepreneurship. And that is give people more freedom. And also free labor market. So you have a cheap labor. So in China, I think is no special. Even today, when we talk about government roles, the government is important. We need the government. I understand that. But the problem is the government always try to do too much, which is unhealthy. And China has been successful in past 3 decades, not because government control too much, but because government control less and less. And today, if we reverse back, if we let government control more, and the Chinese growth would be stopped. So also I realize that I think many people in China, economists realize without democracy, in future, China's market system cannot be sustained. And economic growth cannot be sustained. That's my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perhaps your next trip should be to Bengal.